In a jam-packed House of Commons, the former Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is currently speaking in response to Sir Keir Starmer officially welcoming all the MPs to the House. Essentially, the Speaker, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, has been reinstated as Speaker after giving a speech and welcoming the new mother and father of the House, respectively. The oldest MPs, male and female, Diane Abbott and Sir Edward Lee. Rishi Sunak publicly congratulating Sir Keir Starmer again on his election win and saying that the business of serving the country is one that, I'm paraphrasing now, but one that they all hope he succeeds in. We'll see how long that mood lasts. I want to talk about a meeting that took place earlier on today, actually, in which the mood was clearly very good indeed. Sir Keir Starmer met with England's metro mayors, as they're collectively known, saying he believes that they can make much better decisions together if they work together with the good of the people that they represent in mind. Let's take a listen to what he said at the weekend about the role of the metro mayors.
The principle I operate to is those with skin in the game know what's best for their communities. And that does require us to be bold about pushing power and resource out of Whitehall. And therefore, when I return from the Four Nations, I shall hold a meeting of the metro mayors to discuss with them their part in delivering the growth that we need across the United Kingdom. That will be on Tuesday. That will include non-Labour metro mayors. There's no monopoly on good ideas, and I'm not a tribal politician. And the principle I operate to, whether it's mayors or other elected representatives, is that where regional leaders want to deliver for their area, then regardless of the colour of their rosette, my door is open and my government will work with them.
Andrew Marr joins me to mull this over, LBC presenter Monday to Thursday from 6 o'clock. Quite a moment in the Commons at the moment, Andrew, just seeing that switch in vision, in real time.
It is extraordinary to look at. On the Tory side, I thought gracious words and glum faces all around.
That's true.
A very diminished Conservative Party and a swollen, huge Labour Party still rubbing their eyes and trying to believe it.
Yeah, absolutely. On what we just heard Sir Keir say there, that was from his press conference on Saturday afternoon. You spoke to me before the election was even called about a conversation you'd had with Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, in which he was saying if this win comes as they expected it to, they can really motor on some of the things he wants to do by working in unison here with Keir Starmer. Are you as hopeful as he was?
Yeah, Andy Burnham, King of the North, Mayor of Greater Manchester, said, if we win, then 2024 is going to be a bigger progressive, a bigger radical year than 1997 when Tony Blair came in ever was. And I said, come off it. Don't be ridiculous. 97, the economy was much stronger. The mood of the country was more optimistic. That's absurd. And he said, no, because in 1997, Labour didn't have any kind of structure outside London to actually do what it wanted. There was no form of devolution. John Prescott eventually had to invent it himself. Whereas now, he said, if Keir Starmer becomes Prime Minister and wants this done or that done, then all around the country, Scotland and across England, there are the structures and the people to make it happen. And I think that's true. I'll give you just a couple of concrete examples of that. Labour wants to build 1.5 million new homes. Where are they going to go? I think it's much likelier that Ben Houchen in Tees Valley or Steve Rotherham in Liverpool or indeed Andy Burnham will have a good idea about where those houses should go, what kind of land should be used for them, than anybody sitting in Whitehall. And the same applies, to new onshore wind farms. Very, very controversial wherever they land, but local, elected mayors who understand their areas are a much better place to start.
It's funny, reading what came from those meetings today made me go even further back than 97 and think about Michael Heseltine and the work that he did, not just in Liverpool, but the longer term work he did on our major cities. Because one of the things he always says is that, and certainly said it about Liverpool back in the 80s, is it was a lack of leadership. The talent was there, the skills were there, it was the lack of leadership that got in the way. It looks like that's what these guys and gals want to do, isn't it? Use the fact of their leadership.
I think the leadership is there. And Sheila, something we haven't discussed for a while, but is, I think, going to be a big issue for the country, is Labour's idea of a whole set of new towns. Because Michael Heseltine's other great sort of understanding or perception was that it's no good just building houses. You have to have parks, you have to have cinemas and pubs and shopping centres, and fountains and all of that stuff.
Places.
These have to be nice places. They have to be real places. And I think that's going to be a big issue for the Labour Party. You have to create not just housing, but communities and towns.
You mentioned Ben Houch in there. I mean, the Conservative Mayor, Tees Valley, he came out of that meeting possibly more glowing than anybody else.
Yeah, well, he's somebody, it's very interesting. He was a great acolyte of Boris Johnson back in the day, and to a certain extent on the right of the Conservative Party in some ways. But he has always been somebody who was more interested in his area in Tees Valley than he was in national politics. And I think he sees an opportunity here for a government that's more interested in the mayors and in devolution to do things in his patch. So it's good for everybody.
I was thinking earlier on of the word localism. You'll remember localism, Andrew, and how lots of governments have promised to devolve power. In England, I'm talking about specifically here, have promised to do it, promised to devolve power to the local councils before the mayors existed. It never really happened in a big way, did it?
Every government says they're going to do it, and hardly any of them do. And one other note of caution in all of this, of course, most people don't live in great big cities, they live in towns. And there's an awful lot of the country where there isn't an obvious metropolitan area at the centre or a metropolitan mayor, therefore. So you also have to think about what do you do about, the county towns in Wiltshire and Dorset and in Northumberland. Those places also need to be thought about. The other thing I think we should mention from today is there's been an official announcement from the Prime Minister that he's setting up this Council of the Nations and Regions. It may just be a talking shop, because I'm not absolutely sure what Wales and Tees Valley or Scotland or Northern Ireland and Greater Manchester really have in common to sit down and thrash around the table with the Prime Minister. But he says it's going to be a really serious thing. He's always going to be there attending himself in person, and it'll take minutes. It'll be a real new part of the Constitution. We'll wait and see.
Can I ask you as well, while I've got you, about the various experts that we're starting to see? I suppose James Timpson is one of the most obvious ones being brought into government roles. Is that it made me think of Kate Bingham and the vaccine rollout, because what she said at the end of that, once the success of the vaccine had happened, was if you could do more big government projects and policy projects, getting experts and the people you need right to the heart of number 10, to the operation, you'd get things done a lot more quickly. Are there shades of that coming through from Starmer early on?
There are, and this is something that the people around him have been talking about for at least a year, the importance of getting the very best people from outside government to work with people inside government. They also talk about Louise Casey, and the homelessness projects that happened before. And if you can get them in alongside civil servants, so everybody's working together in task forces, that seems to be the quickest way of getting things actually moving. Though, of course, there is a slight oddity about this, Sheila, which is that, Sir Patrick Vallance, Mr Timpson and so forth, they're going in via the House of Lords. And this government, which is meant to be against the House of Lords and eventually wants to abolish it entirely, seems to be governing in the short term more and more through the House of Lords.
Is it the only way to get somebody in to work with government, to ennoble them?
Absolutely not. You can give them a salary, give them an office, give them a laptop and let them get on with it. They do need to have authority. They do need to have, people need to know that, if Shelagh Fogarty had been brought in to overhaul broadcasting policy, she has the authority of the Prime Minister at her back, and you'd be well better listen to her, as we all do, obviously, Sheila, anyway. Yeah. So you need authority, and I suppose being a minister in the House. If you're a minister, you have to be in Parliament. And therefore, if you aren't elected, you have to be in the House of Lords. But not everybody with influence in government is a minister, nor has to be.
Well, Kate Bingham, she was given a damehood afterwards, wasn't she? But she was doing the job that she knows how to do and was called in to do it.
She'd done good. She did really, really well with that, didn't she?
Yeah, it was fascinating. Thank you very much, Andrew. Well, let's see, as the days and weeks and months progress, how successful this devolution in England to the city regions actually is. I'd be really keen to hear from you about having skin in the game, because we all feel like we have skin in the game where we live. Of course we do.